Hello, algebra. So we have talked about scatter plots. So we are going to practice some plotting of points and finding trend lines with scatter plots. So we're looking at this chart right here. We have different students with really awesome names. And then we're looking at hours of sleep that they got, the grade on the test that they got, and then money from grandma that they got. And Peretti has said that to get a high grade on the Chapter 4 test, one must sleep the night before. So we're going to actually take a look at hours of sleep and the grade on the test. Okay, this first part right here says look at grade on test and money from grandma. We're going to skip that. You're doing that one on a different day. So there's a different video for that one. For now, let's look at hours of sleep and grade on the test. So we are focusing on those two. So first thing you want to do is pull out your graph paper. And you want to, it looks like the low for sleep is 3 hours and the high is 9. And for grade on the test, our low is 50 and our high is 95. So you want to use that range and that domain for your graph here, all right? So take a minute, pause the video, try finding the range and domain and labeling your axes. And I should add, we need to think about which of these causes the other one. So which one is the independent and which one is dependent variable. So does the grade cause sleep or does sleep cause the grade? Well, in this case, we should have sleep causing the grade, right? So the dependent variable is going to be your grade. So on a separate piece of paper, something that looks like this, for where we talk about sleep versus grade, the dependent variable is the grade on the test. How do you know that? I know because, and we just said sleep determines your grade on the test, right? So that's what you want to do. All right, your grade your graph will look slightly different from mine, okay? So I chose to go from 0 to 10 on my x-axis for hours of sleep, and then from 45 right here, all right, all the way up to 100 on my y. So yours is going to be slightly different from mine, and that is okay. The next thing you want to do is to plot all of your points, okay? Plot all of your points. All right, once you've plotted your points, you should get something like this. The next thing says to draw a trend line. So you should take your ruler and just put it on there and draw a trend line. Draw a straight line that kind of goes with the data. So something that looks like this. I'm just taking it, I'm putting it on there, and I am going to draw a trend line. So just shoot. So here is my graph with my trend line. The next thing I want to do is to find some pretty points, okay? There are points that perfectly cross our vertical markers and our horizontal markers, so the X and the Y. So they're easy to read what points they are. And I have highlighted, a couple of them. So this one right here, for example, looks to be at, well, each of these is worth 0.2, so that would be 6.2, 6.4, and 75, right? That's where that one is. This one is at 5 and 63. And then this one over here is at 8 and 89. So I can use any of those that I have found. There's probably some more on here I could even use. But I'm going to pick 2 of those. All right, so pick any 2. So the 2 points I decided to go with are 6.4 and 75, and then 8 and 89. Now, I know slope is rise over run, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I color coordinated my points so that I have the red ones are for my y's and the blue ones are for my x's. So I'm going to do 89 minus 75 over 8 minus 6.4. When I actually do that, I get 14 over 1.6, which is the same as 8.75. So my slope is not a perfect number. It's got a decimal, right? It's a fraction, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So when we think about, well, what does that slope mean? Well, that was 14 over 1.6, right? 14 what? Well, 14 y's. Okay, what are the y's? Are they dogs? Are they kittens? Are they inches of rain? Like, what was the y's? Take a look at your graph and see what it says on the y-axis there. So it'd be 14 what? And then this 1.6, well, it's 1.6 what? What is on that x-axis, all right? You should have labeled your axes. So take a look, then you can make sense of what that is. Now that we know our slope, and again, you should have different points than I do. Okay, your line is different from mine because you're a different person. Naturally, you're going to draw a different line than me, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a good thing. So your slope is different from my slope, or, really close, but slightly different. Now we need to find our y-intercept. All right, to find our y-intercept, we start with just the equation of our line, y equals mx plus b. And we know what m is. We found it to be 8.75. So I'm going to plug in 8.75 for m. And then I picked a point on my line, so 5 and 63. I could have used either of these points too. It doesn't matter, as long as it's on my line. So I picked that one because I thought it was pretty and nice and going to be easy to use. So I plug in what I know. Well, 5 is for my x and 63 is for my y. And then there's my 8.75 for my slope. I plug those in. 8.575 times 5 is really 43.75. Well, when I solve for both for b, I subtract 43.75 on both sides, which leaves me with 19.25. That is my y-intercept. Well, what does that mean? That means my graph crosses at the point 0, 19.25. It crosses the y-axis at the point 0, 19.25. Well, 0 what? Look at your x-axis. What did you label it with? So it'd be 0 what? 19.25. Well, that's the y. So look at your y-axis. 19.25 what? So that's what it means, right? Make a sentence of that. 0 blah, whatever your x-axis says, and 19.25 blah, whatever your y-axis says. Now that I know that, I know my m and my b, I can actually plug that in and write my equation for my line. So the equation for my line is y equals 8.75x plus 19.25. All right, so that's the equation of my line. Now I can use that to answer a couple of questions. Those questions being right down here. So according to your equation, what grade should you expect to get if you get 5 hours of sleep? Well, for 5 hours of sleep, sleep is on my x-axis, right? So this would be when x equals 5. I want to find what y equals. So I'm going to take y equals 8.75. And again, your y-intercept is different from mine. Your slope is different from mine. That's a good thing. I'm going to plug in 5 for my x. And I want to solve that. So I know that I get y equals 43.73 plus 75, excuse me, plus 19.25. When I add that together, my y is 63. So if I get 5 hours of sleep, I get 63% on my test. Write that as a sentence. If I get 5 hours of sleep, I get 63% on my test. So according to your equation, if you got 70 on the test, how many hours of sleep did you get? Well, this 70 is your test grade. That means it's y. So this would be 70 is equal to 8.75 x plus 19.25. So I need to subtract 19.25 on both sides. So that is 50.75 is equal to 8.75 x. Now I need to divide both sides by 8.75. So I am left with x is equal to 5.8. So that means if I get a 70, I get at least 5.8 hours of sleep. So about 5 3/4, a little bit more, right? So write that as a sentence. If I get a 70 on the test, I must have gotten 5.8 hours of sleep. The last thing on here is what is the line of best fit according to Desmos. So plug that in, and then remember when you type it into Desmos for the line of fit, you type in all of these points, right? Type in all of those points, and then on a new line, type in y1 approximately x1 plus b. That will do a line of best fit, okay? And to get these sub ones, remember there's that little underscore that is right next to like the 0. So you just hit shift in that to get that sub one. Email me if you have any questions.